Alright, it's been a while since I've just done an unpopular opinion video where I just talk about something I know isn't going to be popular. I know you're gonna dislike this video, and in fact, I'm encouraging you to. I even found out recently that liking and disliking videos does actually affect it in the algorithm, but if you disagree with me, go ahead, slap that dislike button, and just tell me that way. You don't have to leave a long comment, and if the comment you want to leave is just, "you're dumb," that's fine too. You don't have to explain yourself. This is an unpopular opinion. It's also an opinion that I believe to be factually superior, so we are already on the track to making this opinion as unpopular as possible. So here's the unpopular opinion. Larger maps, complicated maps are better. I just enjoy them so much more. Now, I'm not gonna get hung up on individual game mechanics because, for instance, I absolutely adore Modern Warfare's map design, but I don't like the mechanics that surround it. I think if Modern Warfare had a normal minimap, suppressors worked the way they always had, and if Dead Silence and Amplify were perks, and if doors were destructible, and if shrapnel didn't affect claymores and landmines, stuff like that. Obviously Modern Warfare already had maps that allowed for a multitude of playstyles, both conservative and rushing, but it catered to the more conservative playstyles a lot more. Hell, I believe Claymore is the first lethal you unlock, so it's pretty obvious that they wanted people to play the game more methodically, which I think is a breath of fresh air after the Call of Duty games that came before MW 2019, and we hadn't had a Call of Duty game like this since 2013, but still, it's a little inexcusable, and I do think they should have, tilted the scales a little bit more towards, multiple play styles. So I fully agree with that. I spent the entire life cycle of Modern Warfare playing objective game modes to avoid obsessive campers. And Hardpoint and Domination and Headquarters and Cyber Attack and Cyber Attack Pro were my bread and butter. I just played them so goddamn much, and if I played a non-OBJ mode, it was kill confirmed because that, increased the pace of the combat a little bit. But for some people, pacing is everything. You have to be constantly lighting up the kill feed, and the map needs to be predictable in order for you to control it. Don't agree with me? Look at most people's favorite Call of Duty maps. They're predictable as hell. If you bring up maps like Stonehaven from Call of Duty Ghosts, or Wasteland from Modern Warfare 2, Derailed from Modern Warfare 2, you bring up Turbine from Black Ops 2, people get upset. When you say you like Gustav Cannon in COD World War II, people look at you funny. Because, God forbid, the pacing of the game ever changes. Every map should be 3 lanes, symmetrical, predictable cover, so that way, when you're playing, you always know where your enemy's going to be, and you don't have to try too hard. You don't have to develop strategies. You don't have to adjust your class. You don't have to do anything. The game is set up in a way, ideally, right, that you can use whatever weapon class, doesn't really matter. It's not really about the adventure. And that's what I like about larger Call of Duty maps like Grozny Raid. I love Grozny Raid Team Deathmatch. Why? It doesn't play very well sometimes, it's a little bit awkwardly paced, but hell, I like it more because I'm taking a trek. I'm choosing to take a long flank, short flank, I'm cutting through buildings, I'm cutting through the middle, I'm sniping from a distance, I'm locking down a building. I can play the map many different ways. Now, you might say, well, boom, you can only play that map certain ways if the enemy team is allowing you to. Well, congratulations, you just described every online game. Obviously, the human element will get in the way. People will play in a way that's frightening and frustrating and irritating and flustering and bullshit. That way, it's less fun for you and more fun for them. Now, that's what you're doing. When you're playing Call of Duty, you'd rather be the one having the fun, right? And then they, the opponents, have less fun, right? I'm sorry. The reason simple maps are so popular, 3-lane predictable maps are so popular, is because there's no ground lost. When you're on a symmetrical map and you die on one side, you spawn on the other, you have essentially the same power position, but mirrored. It might have a minuscule advantage or disadvantage, but it's essentially the same piece of cover. It's essentially the same engagement, but reversed if you get into one. In a map like that, there is less ways for somebody to, well, to put it simply, fuck with you. There's less ways to be messed with, screwed around, and there's less reasons to adjust your class and playstyle when the map is simplistic, square, when it's boiled down to its bare geometrical values. I mean, I'm talking rectangles, I'm talking squares, I'm talking symmetrical walls facing each other, symmetrical windows facing each other. Think of every base Black Ops 3 map, except for my lord and savior, Hunted. Hunted is my favorite Black Ops 3 map. Why? Because it's so well balanced? No, because it's a break from Black Ops 3's monotonous map design. When every single match plays at the same pace, I don't want to have long play sessions. It fatigues me. Call of Duty's gunplay and design is already very simplistic. It's not a very depth-filled game. So I don't know why I'd want to play on more simple maps. Wouldn't I want engagements to be varied, and wouldn't I want the places I play on to be varied? I love that COD World War II had maps like Sainte Marie du Mont, Pointe du Hoc, and Gustav Cannon, because all three of those maps played drastically different from one another, so my play session was better. Now, it's okay to not like a map, and I'm not going to say you're just a dummy that likes simplistic maps if you don't like a large map. No, there are large maps I don't like. I don't think a map being large and complex is the end-all, be-all sign of quality. Hell no. You see, when it comes to simplistic maps, you can kind of like any map that has the same layout as the other maps. If you like slums, any map that's laid out similarly to slums, you're gonna like, and it's not hard to lay out a map that's similar to slums because slums is a simplistic map. But if you like messy maps, more convoluted Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 1 style maps, then yeah, you're gonna have a lot more opinions. You're gonna be a lot more opinionated because you're going to be dealing with drastically different layouts, and those layouts can really shake up gameplay. Just having a single building or a single window, a single, alleyway, a choke point in the wrong spot can mess up a convoluted map. It's much harder to make a convoluted map, and it's less consistent. When it comes to flow and pacing, they're going to be less consistent because they're not designed around the same gameplay as everything else. So you don't have that mass applicable template to just go, oh, I like maps like this. Because there are no other maps like Derailed. There are no other maps like Wasteland. A map like a state? The only map like a state is a state. Same with Afghan. These types of maps, they're larger, they're more complicated, and they have a unique aspect to them. Whether you're fighting uphill, fighting for a cliff, you're fighting for a trench, you're fighting for a building, you're fighting for a flank route, I don't know. But you're gonna be fighting for something different on each one of these maps. I think that's when maps are at their best. I think that's when an FPS game is at its best. That when you sit down and play for a multitude of hours, you get a multitude of experiences. You get maps with long lines of sight, you get maps with really close range engagements. You get your shipments and your crossfires, your rusts and your wastelands. You get your Pointe du Hoc and you get your Gustav Cannon. In Modern Warfare, you get your Condor hideout, you get your shoot house, you get your shipment, you get your rust, but you also get your Azir Cave, Arklov Peak, Grozny Raid. You get that variety, and I think that variety makes FPS games more replayable, more fun to revisit. But I wouldn't be me unless I really explain my position further. When I was a kid, one of my favorite games to play was, Nerf battles, airsoft battles, something along those lines. We take Nerf guns, airsoft guns. Sometimes we take guns that don't even fire a real projectile and just make pew pew sounds. Whatever. My friends and I were really into those types of games. Where we played was the subdivision. We played the entire subdivision. So every sidewalk, every backyard that we could get into, that we had permission to get into, we had garages we'd use around houses. I ended up using my own bedroom at one point. My friends were looking for me, and I had my Nerf long shot, posted up in the window in my bedroom. I knocked the screen out, and so I just swung open the window, and I just started firing at them. I don't think I hit them. It's a Nerf gun. It's inaccurate as hell, but it was hilarious because they just didn't expect me to be still in my house, and it was a lot of fun. In terms of competitive skill-based, no. But in terms of having a bit of an adventure to exploring and using new areas, that was what I enjoyed, and that's what I enjoy now in my shooters. I like maps that have complexity to them and depth to them. I like that when I private match my buddy on a map like Grozny Raid, I don't know where he's going to be. It's not just a game of hide and seek though, because although yes, we could do that, it could become a game of hide and seek, for the most part, we're always seeking each other out. I don't need my matches to be fast. I don't need my matches to have the kill feed being constantly lit up. And especially not every game. I'm okay with methodical matches. I am okay with loading in to a map that almost always goes to the time limit because this is a good map for me to snipe on. This is a good map for me to, put a ghillie suit on, lay in a bush and snipe. This is a really good map for me to lock down a road with a machine gun. But maybe I'll put on like a stealthy speed class and I'll just book it to the other side of the map. I'm gonna go for a long flank, and that'll be really fun. That'll be really exciting for me. And that's what I enjoy. When you boil everything down to being 3-lane, when you boil everything down to having predictable pieces of cover, symmetrical windows that are across from each other, you're just limiting my experience. You're limiting how much fun I can have, genuinely. It sounds dramatic, but genuinely that's what you're doing to me. Simplistic maps equal simplistic combat, simplistic flow. The flow that you like, that you believe to be well-paced, in my opinion, is the most simplistic pace a Call of Duty can be. If you're constantly in front of an opponent, yes, that's more skill-based, and yes, it's gonna come down to your ability to win a gunfight, and if you enjoy that, good for you. But you have to understand that comes from limiting you in the first place. Like a sports game, where the field is a certain size, and there are certain rules you have to play by. It's what I refer to as forced engagements. Black Ops 3 does not want you to play at certain ranges. They split up every long line of sight, unless it's a symmetrical line of sight that has a very similar window on the other side of the map. They split it up with cover, so you can't take advantage of certain flank routes. So Black Ops 3 was the first Call of Duty game to give us this unique and interesting 3D movement with wall running and power sliding and all this shit, but they just limited how we could move. It felt like a sports game. It felt like something that's a little bit more competitive, and that's great for some people, but this is an unpopular opinion. My unpopular opinion is that that's boring as fuck. My ideal Call of Duty game has 6 maps that are the size and the style of Grozny Raid, or Derailed, or Estate. I love big maps like that. And then 6 other maps that are more simplistic. They're more like Raid. They're more like Slums. They're more predictable and easy to manage. But I love the shootouts on St. Petrograd between the restaurant and the apartment building. I love flanking people on a map like Grozny Raid. I love Azir Cave's weird asymmetrical layout with the cave on one side and the open air on the other, and a middle lane that can just be death row unless you use the bottom lane. Nobody uses that bottom lane, but it's so good for flanking the opponent's spawn. It's sad. I feel like people don't want to learn maps. They don't want to create strategies. They don't want to play a game with unique design choices. Because, yeah, when you load up Crash in Modern Warfare, that's going to be mostly about controlling buildings, controlling lamp, controlling pharmacy, controlling restaurant, controlling electronics. That's what you want to be able to do. And if you're really getting pushed, you want to be able to control the apartment in the back spawn. This is important, because then I go to Condor Hideout and it doesn't play the same. And then I go to Cheshire Park and it doesn't play the same either. Oh, then I go to Piccadilly. I hate Piccadilly, but it doesn't play the same either. It's mentally engaging me because each map requires different strategies and different playstyles, and yes, your consistent performance is going to be hurt. The consistency and the pacing is going to be hurt. But you know what else gets hurt, and I'm glad it does? Monotony. Okay, boredom. If it's boring to you to play a complex map, I think what you're looking for is a win, not an experience, and that's fine. But my idea of a good game is one that values my skill, which I think Call of Duty does value your skill. I think Call of Duty does value your ability to point, aim, shoot, and move. I do think Call of Duty does value that deep down, despite the nonsense we all get frustrated with. At the end of the day, Call of Duty does respect my skill. But what I care about is the experience. What I care about is having a unique moment. I can't have unique moments on maps that aren't unique. Yes, you can pin the enemies in their spawn every game and get hundreds of kills every game, but what about the game where you want to post up in a building with a sniper rifle and hard scope people? What about the game where you want to take a stealthier approach and maybe you're not so worried about getting a bunch of kills as you are catching the enemies off guard? If that sounds ridiculous to you, then you and I are just very different types of players. I love to slay out, I love to go sweaty, I love to do that sometimes, but I also just like an experience that's unique. I like an experience that keeps me coming back, and I don't keep coming back if the game bores the shit out of me. So yes, I'm reiterating myself a good amount of times here. There's not much else to say. Simplistic maps equal simplistic combat. Call of Duty's combat, while I do think it values a good player, it's still simplistic. Why do you think people love Gunsmith in Modern Warfare so much? They might not love the maps, but they love the Gunsmith. The reason people love Gunsmith is because it takes that simplistic gunplay and allows you to throw it on its head and manipulate it and use weapons for things they weren't meant to be used for. And that's exciting. In my opinion, it's just as egregious to have the same exact map template for every map as it would be to completely take away my ability to customize my class and weapon. Variety is king in a game as simple as Call of Duty. Little bits of flavor are king because you don't need a lot, you just need a little, and sometimes you just need a map that's a little bigger than the others, a little more complex than the others, has a gimmick that other maps don't have. So because this video is supposed to be unpopular and I basically ask for dislikes, I'll just say the most controversial, rude statement of this entire rant. How the fuck did Activision, Treyarch, Infinity Ward, Sledgehammer Games get you all to praise pattern exhaustion? See you when I see you. Goodbye.